I'm not a teacher. I'm not a preacher. And I'm definitely not a Bible scholar. My goal and my intent today is to basically introduce Esther to you, set you back in the Persian Empire, kind of feel what she felt, kind of feel like you in her robe and her sandals, kind of get the idea of what she'd been through, and then kind of think about what is it that you would have done? Would you have reacted the same way, or how would you even dealt with the whole thing? So the way I want to go about this is start out with a little background, the setting, conditions. Then I'll give you the condensed version of all the 10 chapters, so we don't have to read through everything, and elaborate a little bit on it. After that, we'll talk about lessons learned, which there are plenty, but I'll cut it down to 2 things. Things that stuck out to me, which I thought was important. It's not all inclusive, of course, but it might not be as obvious, but I want to just hone in on 2. And then at the end, if there's time left, Sister Kendra gonna let us know, we'll do Q&A. In the meantime, I'm asking you to hold your questions until the end. This way we stay on target and we don't spend too much time. All right, here we go. Now just imagine the setting starts out with the book of Esther, which is in the Old Testament. Anybody know who wrote the book? Who was the author? Exactly, nobody knows. So that's it. Nobody knows. It's believed it could have been Mordecai because he was recorded actually writing some of the stories down. So it could have been him, but nobody knows. It was written about 2,500 years ago, BC, 470 BC, which was 9 years after Esther became queen. Now the location is Persia, the Persian Empire. Now that took all the way from Kush, Egypt, all the way to India. That was the largest empire at that time, and it was humongous. And there were 127 provinces, and the capital, or one of the capital, was Susa, and that's where the palace was, at least one of the winter palaces. And it was the world's, basically the capital world empire at the time. So anyone knows Persia? What's that in this day and age? What country is Persia? Starts with an I. Iran. Yes, it's Iran. Now the emperor was King Xerxes I, and he ruled approximately 21 years, from 486 to 465 BC. Now Esther became his queen in his 7th year, which was about 1/3 into his reign, approximately 479 BC, so quite some time ago. Now the reason she came to be there is the history that King Nebuchadnezzar, he took all the Jews from Jerusalem, took them captive, and took them down to Babylon. So 103 years later, you had still all the Jews that were exiled. They kind of settled down. And some of them, have prominent jobs. So it's not so much as slaves, but they just lived there. So one of the exiled Jews was Mordecai. He was from the tribe of Benjamin. And he brought his little cousin, Hadassah. Now, Hadassah was an orphan. Her father, Abihail, died, so did her mom. So Mordecai, being a little bit older, he took her under his wings, kind of was the father role, the mentor for her, looked after her. Now, there are key players, which is, of course, Esther, King Xerxes, Mordecai, Haman, and the eunuch Haggai. These are like your people that put everything into motion. But our main focus today is going to be Esther. Now the name Hadassah, which was her actual birth name, is Hebrew, means myrtle branch, and it symbolizes righteousness and beauty. Now the name Esther is Persian, and it means star. And so what probably happened as she came to the palace, she did not divulge her identity, her background, so she took on the name Esther. So Esther and Hadassah is the same person. So she had a dual identity. She was a Jewish orphan, and she also was a Persian queen. Does it sound familiar to anybody? Jew, royal position, you're moving from a Jewish position all of a sudden to like king, royal position. Anywhere in the Bible? Anyone? How about Moses? Anybody else? right? David, Joseph, Daniel. I mean, there's a lot of male figures that actually rose up from being a Jew. All of a sudden, they were like second in charge. Now I'm going to summarize this whole thing as the best I can. And there's a lot of details, and some things have to be mentioned because it's like a puzzle. It builds on each other. So if I leave something out, it's not going to explain why this happened. I mean, everything is intertwined. There's a lot of action going on in the story. Excuse me. Now, King Xerxes, he had this half a year celebration. So you got all the noblemen together. He got all the military guys together, all the rich folks, and just showed off his wealth, his property, everything. You know, it was a big thing. So this was partially not just to show it off, but it was also strategizing, because that's when they planned the next battle, because he had kind of talked about maybe taking Greece, and so to let everybody know, hey, I got this. You know, there's enough money there. I can handle this. Now, after the banquet, then he took all the people in Susa, the regular folks, you know, peanut gallery. So all they got to come to the banquet. They got to drink as much as they wanted. There was no limit. He just let them drink and let them have it. Now, his current queen, Vashti, she was supposed to go. She was on the last day. She was invited by him. She was supposed to show up. She refused. Now, she refused the king. She did not go to the banquet. And we don't know. It didn't say, was she indisposed? Was she sick? Was she with child? Was she just tired of just being shown off, you know, like a piece of meat, whatever? Plus, she had her own banquet going. Maybe she didn't want to leave there. Plus, she knew after a week of drinking, it's like, there's going to be some rowdy guys. They all be going to be drunk. I'm not going to be there. Plus, it's not customary for a woman to be amongst the men. So she said no. Well, that was a no-go. So she got gone. I mean, she got disposed. She lost her position. She's no more queen right now. So never again was she able to see the king. Now, the king had a problem. He got no queen. So what's he going to do? To send out folks throughout all the 127 provinces to look for young, pretty virgin girls. All backgrounds, all nationalities, all speeches, languages, whatever. They took them to the palace, to the harem. That's where all the women were kept. And of course, the bigger the harem, the more prosperity, the wealthier the king is, you know. So one of them was Hadassah, which is now Esther. She was taken there as well. And immediately, Haggai, the eunuch, found favor in her. So a eunuch is a castrated man. They were commonly used for, you know, employees in the palace, especially for the harem. You know, king felt safe. Hey, he's castrated. I don't have to worry about him. You know, he's the only man allowed in the harem. And also, you know, just to provide safety and security for the women. And they acted as intermediaries between the harem and the outside world, because the women were pretty much on lockdown, like a golden cage. So he started Hadassah, Esther, on her beauty treatments immediately. Now, the way this went, there was a whole year of treatments. Half a year was the oils and the myrrh. Another half a year was cosmetics and perfumes. Of course, special foods, choice foods, you know, really real healthy foods. So just imagine 1 year, nothing but spa. You get your facials, you get your hair done, get your nails done, your pedicures, massages. I mean, you're just living it up. But at that time, it was not just that. It was also customary, obviously, to educate the women. I mean, they had to get them all on the same sheet of music. They came from all over, so I'm sure they taught them maybe the language, the customs, the Persian traditions, maybe some arts, so they know how to sing, dance, or whatever, perform. So it was a variety of things, but I'm sure they taught protocol, how to deal with the palace, the royal procedures, you know, probably had the SOP, and how to address the king and what to do, not to do, the goes and no-goes. So it was a year of basically preparation and training before they even faced the king, 1 whole year. So now, the way this went, after the year was over and everybody was ready, they saw the king for 1 night, and 1 night only. That's their one chance to be the queen. So they got taken in the evening, they spent the night with the king, and until the morning, and then they got sent back. If they were not selected, they got sent back to a different harem, different, like the non-select kind of group. So they had a choice to take anything from the harem, whatever they wanted. Now it doesn't say, I'm sure they had maybe all kind of jewelry or decor or linen and oils and perfumes, whatever. And this way they can appease the king and kind of give him a gift. Well, here's Esther. Now she waited a year, all the treatment. She probably was like, man, I'm done for this, And imagine, she must have been really excited and nervous. I mean, she's this young virgin. She'd been away from her family for a whole year. And even though she stayed in touch with Mordecai, because he sat at the gate, but still, she was homesick, I'm sure, and all these strange customs and strange foods and just adjusting to all that. I mean, that was not easy. And here she is, she got to see the king. She knows this is a one-time chance. Now, she could have selected something from her, and she had the best place in the harem already, so she had the best. Yet, she chose nothing. Nothing at all. Why do you think that is? She didn't take anything to the king.
She didn't give herself.
Right? Just herself. Mm-hmm. And everybody said she was beautiful. Everybody was pleased with her. So it was not just her beauty. Her whole character must have been really amazing and drawing people to everybody. Now, I thought maybe she tried to sabotage it. Maybe she didn't do it because she didn't want to be selected. So I figured, I'm okay. I just go there and check the block, and I'll go back to the other harem, and that's it. And then maybe hopefully I can go back home or whatever. I mean, who knows? We don't know. Well, here she goes. She spends the night with the king. She's there all night. She leaves in the morning, and guess what? He found favor in her. He was so pleased. She was like the best lady, and he's been through a lot, I'm sure, by that time. So she was elected as his queen. So after like 4 years or so, no queen, he finally got his queen. So she immediately got the crown on. They did a banquet to celebrate, and he called it a holiday. So during all this time, she stayed in touch with Mordecai, like I said, and even as she was a queen, she still talked to him. And since he was sitting at the gate, he had actually access, I guess, to the courtyard. So he probably peeked and, hey, is she doing okay? And they were going back and forth with the eunuchs, messaging and everything. And all of a sudden, Mordecai, as he sat at the gate, and more likely he was an official because you don't just sit at the gate just to be sitting there. You had to have some kind of official position. And he could have been a guard, he could have been a judge or something with the courts. I mean, he knows, but official position. And by sitting there doing his job, he overheard 2 soldiers, and they plotted to assassinate the king. So immediately he went, sent a message to Esther and said, hey, let the king know, okay, he's going to be killed. These are the 2 perpetrators, make sure he knows. Of course, immediately she told the king, and these guys were found out, they were hung, so they were taken care of. Now imagine, Mordecai had not been at that position. He had not sat at the gate. He had not listened to it. And even if he did, why would he even tell the king? I mean, it's like, hey, this is kind of like, I'm in captivity in a way, it's fine, get rid of this guy, He could have not, same with Esther, it's like, man, I get rid of this old geezer, So, no, but they let him know, and it was taken care of. Now, what did Mordecai get for all this? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. There was no reward, no hurrah, whatever. They just recorded it in the chronicles of the king, and they did really meticulous recording it. Everything that happened was written down. So, all of a sudden, Haman comes on the scene. He turns to be the second in charge. The king found him to be trustworthy. Whatever he saw in him, he was the chief minister. He was the second most powerful person, not just in the palace, but in the entire empire. And he got significant authority and influence. So because of his position, everybody had to bow down to him. So guess what? Everybody did except Mordecai. He did not. Why do you think that was? Why do you think he didn't bow down to the second one in charge, ordered by the king? Why did he disobey the order? Well, he was a Jew. And Haman and the king were kind of like gods, you know. Plus, when you go back into history, he was part of the Agagites, Amalekites, which were ancient enemies of the Jews. So there was a little history going back. So he was not going to bow down because God was going to eliminate all these people. So he didn't bow down to anybody but God, you know, even though he honored the king. So, of course, that didn't go over too well with Haman. Man, here's this lowlife singing the thing. He don't even, you know, recognize me. He don't respect me. It was very embarrassing and very humiliating for him. So what did he do? He said, I'm going to get rid of him. I'm going to kill him. And not just him, but all the Jews, all of them, you know. So in order to do this, he needed the king's help. But he didn't tell him the whole story. So he deceived the king and just told him, hey, there's some folks out there, they don't listen to you, they disobey your rules, they don't follow your customs. It would be in your best interest to just kind of like get rid of them, you know. And so the king said, you know, whatever you do, you got my ring, just do something. Yes, it's fine, it's up to you, I trust you. So he wanted to destroy all of them. And this happened about the 12th year of his reign. And in order to find out when it's going to happen, what they did, they threw a lot. They threw a lot to decide what day all the Jews at one day, it was only one day they can annihilate him, and which day. And the lot fell on the 13th day of the 12th month, which was 11 months later. So it was almost a year later. Now the lot is called the poor. So, everybody was mourning. Everybody was sad. They put on sackcloth, ashes. And Mordecai was wailing at the gate. I mean, loudly. He was desperate, knowing that not just him, the queen, but all his people are going to die. They're going to be slaughtered all in one day after he heard what Haman did. So Esther inquires, what's going on out there? All the commotion. So he sent the order of annihilation to her, and he asked her to beg the king for mercy. So she responded, I haven't seen the king in 30 days. You know, I'm not supposed to go there if I'm not summoned. He's going to kill me. That was her response. So Mordecai sent another message back, and he warned her not to think that she might escape because she lives in the palace. And if she stays silent, then help will come from somewhere else. But she and her father's family will perish. Who knows that you have come to such a royal position for such a time as this? That's what he told her. Now, by then, she was probably about 5 years into this, being a queen, you know, still competing with the other concubines, enjoying all these special privileges, and all of a sudden she got to face death. Now, she never knew when the king calls her, since he got so many other ones to fall back on, you know, and it's been already a month. So he could call her soon, he could not. She did not know. So how long are you going to wait? You know, they had to take action. But after she heard Mordecai's reasoning, she realized what was at stake. And that must have made an impact. And it changed her mind. It was a game changer for her. So from being afraid, she went and made a plan. So she told him that, yes, she will do it. If I perish, I perish. And she had all the Jews gather in Susa. Everybody came together, corporate. And she told them to fast and pray for 3 whole days, day and night, along with her and her 7 mates. She had extra 7 mates to kind of take care of her, even when she was still being trained up. So she probably had a lot more by then. So everybody came together in unison, fasted and prayed for 3 days. Now, she had a year to plan this, but before she did anything, she called the absolute fast. Just no water, no food. Extreme situations ask for extreme measures. Anybody has done that before? Fasting for 3 days with nothing, no water? Nobody? No. Good. I mean, it's rough. I've never done it, but I mean, just being without water to me for 1 day is horrible. So I can only imagine. And knowing that you can actually die 3, maybe 5 days if it's really stretching. It depends on your condition. But you die if you don't drink. Food is not a problem, but the water. And then we don't know what the heat was and conditions, but everybody came together and they fasted and they prayed together as a corporate group, supporting her and themselves, of course, but going before God and just pleading and say, hey, I need your help. So, as soon as the fast was over, she approached the king. She got ready. She got her robe on. She got her royal crown. I mean, she really was all doodled up. And, you know, she didn't know how he's going to receive her. So if he raises his scepter to her and she touches it, it's good. If not, she knew it was death. But hey, she was willing. After that fast, she was ready to go. So he saw her and he was pleased and he let her come to her. And so he said, what is it, Queen Esther? You probably realized, man, I haven't seen her in a while. I maybe felt a little guilty, a little bad. And I was like, man, look at this. I mean, why didn't I even call her? She looks so beautiful. I mean, I give you the whole half the kingdom you can have. What is it that you want? She said, you know what? I just would like for you and Haman to attend my banquet tonight. I got a special meal prepared. I just want you guys to show up. I said, okay, great, you know. So why do you think she didn't come straight out and say, hey, save my people? Instead, she invited, she wasted time to prepare a banquet. Right, yeah. Exactly. Kind of maybe.
High favor.
Huh?
Show him honor and respect.
Right, yes. Make him feel special, you know. Oh, I'm invited, just going to do a banquet for me, and, you know, so. Now, here goes Haman. He was boasting. He was already prideful. He thought he was the stuff. So he was invited to a banquet, and he went to his family, his wife and friends. Everybody said, man, guess what? You know, I already got the elevator. I'm the second one in charge. I'm next to the king. I got his ring, man. I got it together. And now, excuse me. And now I even got invited to the banquet. I'm the only one besides the king. So, but what bothered him was Mordecai. I mean, he's still gotten over the fact that Mordecai is there. He sees him every day. He doesn't bow down to him. He couldn't really, it's like, man, this is not working, you know. Here I'm so important and you just ignore this. So he told him, he said, that really bugs me. I want to get rid of this guy, you know. I'm tired of seeing him. So his friends and family told him and said, hey, why don't you just put up this big gallows next to the house and ask the king to hang him there? Talking about bad advice. We got to be careful who we listen to and what we listen to. And don't just take the advice which suits us. So that night, after the banquet, the king couldn't sleep. Now maybe he was all excited about the banquet and seeing his queen and just had fun and was excited because she invited him again for the second day. Maybe he had too much to drink. Or maybe he was just worrying about what does she want? Man, I offered half the kingdom. What else does she want? Man, what can I offer her? What else can I give her to please her? He really wanted to please her. So no matter what, he couldn't sleep. So what does he do? He goes down to the library and reads his chronicles. Maybe he thought reading history is going to put him to sleep. But it just so happened he opens the book and then he reads about Mordecai stopping the plot to kill him. So he asked, man, what did we do for this guy? Nothing is written. Did we ever award him? Did he get something, a medal or something? They said, no, nothing. He said, who is in the court? Now, it just so happened Haman walked up that morning because his goal was, first thing in the morning, to tell the king, hey, we need to hang this guy up because he's disrespecting you and me and he's not bowing down. So he was going to ask him to hang him on the gallows. But before he even got the word to say, the king said, hey, Haman, what do we do with the guy I want to honor, I'm pleased with, I want to let everybody know. So of course, boastful Haman thinks, oh, he want to honor me. So I said, man, tell you what, king, just take one of your royal robes and one of your horses, take the guy, put him on their horse and take him through the whole town, and say, this is the one that the king is pleased with. So now imagine, here's Haman, already upset with Mordecai. He thinks he's going to have a rope and hang him on the gallows. Instead, he had to go out, take that rope, and lead him around the town and let everybody know. Now, how embarrassing. I mean, here is number 2, Mordecai the Jew, sitting on the horse that refused to bow down. I mean, that was too much for him. So, while he was still willing all this humility and embarrassment, and he was just mad all this happened, it was time for the second banquet. So he had to get ready to go there. So, once again, second night, King asked the queen, what is it that you want? I told you, I got half the kingdom for you. And so she said, well, my dear king, all I want is for you to spare my life, the life of my people. So he's perplexed. He said, what's going on? Who would do such a thing to kill my queen and her people? So she told him about the evil Haman. Now Haman was present. He was so mad when he heard this. He's like, oh my gosh. And it's like, I can't believe it. He had pulled himself together. He just went outside in the garden. In the meantime, Haman knew that was a death sentence. He just done it now. So, especially after Mordecai was just raised up and everything. So it's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? So he fell down on his knees to the queen. Of course, they kind of reclined in their little chairs and after eating. So he falling down, begging her. And I don't know what he thought she can do for him, but he begged for his life, the queen. Of course, the king saw that. He come in, him kneeling down next to his queen, and that was it. I said, man, you're going to go ahead and molest my queen in my palace? Immediately, they covered his face, took him out. He was gone. And guess what they did with him? Exactly. They hung him on the gallows, which was for Mordecai. Now, on the same day, a lot of stuff happens all in one day or a couple of days. There's a lot of action going on here. So now, Haman was out the way, and the king, I guess he wanted to do something for Esther. He gave her Haman's estate. Now, it must have been humongous. He had 10 kids, and it must have been really big. So she got it. And this was also the time when she finally divulged her identity. She finally told him about her relationship to Mordecai, that they were Jews. And immediately, once he connected, hey, he's the one that just elevated, He's the one that saved my life, He gave him the ring, the king's ring, which was actually Haman's. So he put him in Haman's position, being number 2. So then Esther gave that estate that she just got from the king from Haman back to Mordecai. Now, okay, Haman was taken care of, Mordecai is rewarded, but we still have the issue with the killing, the Jews. That's still not dealt with. So once again, she appeared before the king. He was pleased with her. He saw her, asking him to overrule the decree. Now, when an emperor, who at that time, they were kind of like considered God. When you write a decree, this is it. This is permanent. It cannot be rescinded, cannot be canceled, cannot be changed. It is it. It was no no limit to it. So she asked for another decree to kind of override it or kind of change this around because it couldn't be revoked. Now, he tasked Mordecai to write a new decree. And what he done, he wrote a decree which allowed all the Jews to gather, assemble, protect, and defend themselves against any armed forces in the whole empire, and also take the plunder. So that was to kind of counteract the first decree, because that still stood. They're still going to be killed, but now they can actually stand up, rise up against that force. So here is Mordecai, so being on the gallows, he's leaving the king with a royal robe and a crown. So of course the Jews saw that. It's like, oh man, that's our man. They were happy, they celebrated, And now, of course, the tables turned. So many people that were not Jews, they were actually afraid of the Jews because they saw, man, that's a Jew number 2 in the kingdom. They can actually stand up. I'd rather be saved. I'm going to become a Jew. So a lot of people became Jews. So because of the fear. Now, when the initial decree to kill all the Jews was carried out, that's when all the Jews assembled in the empire in all the cities, and they struck down the enemies. It was like 75,000 or so. So now this was on the 13th day. Now, the king asked again Esther, what does she want? Now she asked for the degree of them to fight back be extended for another day for Susa only, for the capital, the citadel. Because there were still some people there, and the 10 sons of Haman were killed, but she wanted them to be hung and kind of see everybody, all this sons are hung up there on the gallows. So basically the 13th, they tried to kill him, they fought back, and the 14th, everybody rested and celebrated, said, hey, we won the victory. But in Susa, they still fought on the 14th, and then they celebrated the 15th. So, now, up to this day, they're celebrating this day. They're celebrating the 14th and the 15th day of that month. And Mordecai, he wrote a decree saying that these 2 days is like a national holidays for all the Jews for years to come. And they're still observing this. Anybody know what the holiday is called? Purim. It's Purim. And it comes from Pur, the lot, because they casted lot. So that was significant because the lot fell on the 13th day, which was like a year later almost. And and the next day is when they basically fought back and they celebrated. So, we just celebrated Purim just the other week, March 13th and 14th. We just had that celebration, a Jewish celebration. So think about it, 2,500 years later, we're still celebrating Purim. And it's a very joyous celebration. And it reflects on the story of Esther and Mordecai. And they give and exchange gifts. They take care of the poor, and of course, a lot of eating festivities. Now, there's a special service, and I was able to partake in that while I was in Iraq. We had a rabbi, and within the constraints we had, they had an evening service. What they do during Purim, amongst other things, they actually read the entire book of Esther from the beginning to the end. And it's very dramatized. So every time the word Haman comes, they're going to blot it out, either stump it out as a boo, or do have little whatever, So everybody's kind of participating in this. And they're reading this every single year. And this is one way for them to read it aloud, for the kids to grow up, the story, and you remember it, and they're teaching it, So up to this day, because of what happened back then, to this day, it's still being celebrated. So this is the short version of the book of Esther. Now to me, as I read it, it's kind of like the tales of the Arabian Nights, or the book of the 1001 Night, Oriental stories. But this is a historical, biblical story, and it happened. Now to me, it's a story with a happy end. You got Mordecai, the exiled Jew, being number 2 in the whole kingdom, worked his way from outside the palace, inside the palace, and he replaced Haman and got everything that Haman ever had. And that Jewish orphan Hadassah, she became the Persian Queen Esther. Because of this once woman godly upbringing and her selfless action, justice was served and the Jewish genocide was diverted. Now, instead of decimating the Jews, they increased in numbers. Look at God, see what happened. Now, even though God is not mentioned one time in this entire book, you see his hand all over. He's working behind the scene. Can you give me some examples where God was involved?
The favor of Esther.
Yes, definitely. Also her beauty. I mean, without her beauty, she would have never even got selected, period. But it started with the eunuch seeing her, with the king.
But she found favor and everybody.
Right, yeah, everybody was pleased with her. She must have been a really awesome lady.
Yeah.
Another one, for the king not to be able to sleep. God kept him up for a reason. I mean, the timing was perfect. For him to, from the one banquet to the other, that was the right time, because the next morning, he would have said, yeah, go ahead and kill Mordecai. So he stopped that. He intervened. He had him not sleep. He had him get up. He had him read the books. And of all books, I'm sure there were hundreds of them. He just picked out that one with Mordecai and made him wonder, like, man, I didn't do nothing for him. which put everything into motion. Now, like I said, there's many lections, many lessons learned. And of course, Esther, she's the heroine, is a great example of faith, courage, and determination. And I just want to look at a couple things. One that struck me as soon as I read it, and it was loyal obedience. And it might not be as obvious, but where do you see her loyalty, or where do you see loyalty and obedience in this?
Willingness to put her life on the line for her people.
Right? Loyalty to her people, to the Jews. What else?
Obedience in getting people to fast and pray with her.
Yes, good support there. And since they knew how she was and knew Mordecai, they had a good reputation, they supported them and they worked together. Anything else?
Following what Mordecai had asked her to do.
Exactly. And that's a key thing. Because had she not listened to him, had they not stayed in touch, all this would have never happened. She listened to his advice, which was very good and wise advice. It started out with, hey, don't tell nobody you're a Jew, just kind of keep it, under the cover. And then, hey, if you don't stand up, somebody else will. But either way, we're all going to die. So make up your mind, He kind of really talked to her and spoke wisdom and truth to her. Anything else? I thought it was loyal of her to tell her husband. She didn't have to do it. Hey, somebody's going to kill you. I'm just like, wouldn't give credit not to herself, but to Mordecai. She was loyal to him and let him, because of that, everything was diverted. She had a position to act or not to act. So it was up to her. Now, how often does God move us in a position of higher influence, responsibility, maybe increase in rank, and then what do we do? Do we remember the family members, the colleagues, the friends that kind of helped us go up the ladder? Ones that supported us, maybe sacrificed for us, our spouses? Do we remember where we came from, who we were? Do we use this position to make things better for us or for others? Some things to ponder. Are we using our position, the power that we have to control, to use, manipulate people? Or do we use it to take care of people, like Esther did, versus Haman? He misused his authority. Of course, she had a lot of special privileges and duties to fulfill. And I'm sure she was aware of what happened to Queen Vashti, her predecessor. And unlike her, she was loyal to the king and also her responsibilities. She fulfilled her duties. And immediately she had to inform him about a plot which saved his life, first and foremost. And so I guess that kind of tells him also that she is loyal to me, Mordecai is loyal to me, so I guess that was part of saying, hey, I can really count on these people. They're very loyal. And the fact, like was mentioned, the Jews supported her. Because without them, she needed help. She couldn't do this on her own. She rallied everybody and asked for support for 3 days. And they were on board. They were unified. Nobody said, hey, I'm not going to fast. Hey, I'm going to do just meats and sweets or whatever. No. It said, no, I'm with you. I got you. And this is for all of us. We're going to bow down and we're going to pray and we're going to beg God and we do this together. Now, do we recognize and acknowledge the position that God has put us in, what He intended us for us to do? We all have a position. Where are we? What do we do with it? Are we fulfilling His plan or ours? Or do we even care? Do we seek our own pleasure instead? Now, she could have done that. I mean, she made it. She was in the golden cage. It's like, man, I'm the queen. I've replaced Vashti. I mean, he likes me. Even if I show up assertive and he won't kill me, I got it made and I can live until happily ever after. She didn't do that. She realized, hey, she's in that position for such a time as this, and she had to make a difference. The ball was in her court. She could have played it or not. Now, whatever we do with the situation we're in, with the position, the choice is ours. And so are the consequences. And a key phrase for me is in Esther 4:14, when it says about God puts you in this position for such a time as this. You know, she was put in that position for a reason. And that's what Mordecai was trying to tell her. You are not here because you're the prettiest girl and everybody likes you, or not here because he needed a queen. No, you are here because God puts you there. There's a reason, because you had to save your people. And sometimes we're in a position, it might just be once. You know, this was a lifetime, you know. And there was that one purpose that she had, was to save her people. Because we don't talk about her anymore. It's only about 5-6 years that's get mentioned. She might have never done anything again, but that was enough. She did that one time. That was a big decision, and she saved everybody. To this day, we can still celebrate that, her decision. Also, another one, courageous faith. She knew it was serious, not just for herself and Mordecai, but she knew all the Jews would die in the empire if she don't do anything. So instead of taking the easy way out, she stood up for what was right, no matter the consequences. Of course, initially she justified, she rationalized. You know, she was scared. I mean, she was a young girl. And man, I just became queen. I'm just loving this life. I'm finally get a hang of this thing, you know. Now you tell me I gotta go see him, and what if he kills me? Oh, I don't want to die. She knew it was a death sentence for her, for any man or woman to face the king without being summoned. If he don't call you, you better not ask for him, because if not, you're history. But despite her hesitation, despite her fear, she took the risk, and she did exactly what Mordecai told her. And she said, if I perish, I perish. That was her conclusion. Hey, I did everything. I prayed, I fasted, I did the banquet, I went up there, you know, I'm doing all this, but if he still don't want to see me, so be it, you know. My hand is in God's, my life is in God's hand. But she was willing to die in order to save her people. Now, apparently, Esther was a believing Jew. She must have learned about God when she grew up and watched Mordecai's example, you know, teaching her how to fast and pray. If not, how else would she know about it, you know? So she still observed the customs. So she knew about God, and you can see that all throughout the book. Because the first thing, what did she do when she determined her plan? When she determined, I'm going to face him, she asked God for help. Yeah, she prayed and she fasted. That's the first thing she did, calling for a corporate absolute fast. She meant business, and she was very serious about it because she wanted God to turn this verdict around. She did not lean onto her own understanding because she knew it would have been hopeless, you know. There was nothing in her power she could have done. She relied on God. That's why she asked and pleaded with him first before she executed her plan. So when facing the king, she stepped out in faith and total trust in God. So when we face extreme circumstances, who do we turn to first? I mean, some of us, we might have faced death, not everybody, but there's a lot of extreme stuff that happens if you live long enough. What do you do? Do you panic? Are you fearful? What do? Turn to God. That's supposed to be the right answer. That is the right answer. Where do you go to get counsel? Wise counsel. Do you even get counsel if you're desperate, if you need help? Do you listen to people like Haman, his family and friends, or do you listen to people like Mordecai? Where do we get our wisdom from? What are we willing to do or give up in order to hear God? To seek his face? To ask for intervention? Are we willing to take the time to fast and pray and read his word? Listen to what he has to say? Now, after fast, she jumped right into action. She didn't just sit around and say, okay, I fasted, I prayed, okay, I suffered for 3 days. Okay, God, you got it, you know, it's going to be all right. It's going to be all right. Just let me know when it's over. No, she jumped into, she had a plan. She did what God asked her to do. She went about, and the rest was up to her. And he set the stage for her. So she prepared for the king, willing to die for the sake of her people, trusting that God will work it all out in the end. And she knew the king was pleased with her, yet it was not customary for her to show up. So she did the opposite that was expected, yet believed that he will give her favor from the king. And sometimes it's good to be patient, not rush into things,
right,
and give it time. Because sometimes we have this like, okay, No, sometimes God needs the time to put things in place. Had she rushed and only done one banquet, the king would have never stayed up and read the Mordecai thing. Everything would have been totally different. So there's a reason why sometimes it just takes time, because things are not in place that God wants us to wait for. So to me, that's what right looks like. You know, always do what's right, what's needed, despite our own personal comforts, and definitely consulting with God first. Because too often we jump into things, we forget about God, and then we're just in a mess. It's like, oh, God, help me out. So in closing, my final question to you is, are we ready to face our King, the King of Kings? Are we prepared? Are we ready for him, to follow him, obey him, use our position for his glory and for the good of his people? That concludes my presentation.